There's a voice inside each of us, one that often goes unheard amid the chaos of our daily lives. It's that gentle nudge, the quiet whisper that emerges when everything else falls silent. This voice doesn't shout. It doesn't demand, it simply guides. But in order to hear it, we must be willing to listen. And listening requires stillness, both in mind and in spirit. We are constantly bombarded by external noise, advice from others, societal expectations, the pressure to be something or someone. The world is quick to tell us what we should want, how we should behave, and where we should go. But here's the truth: no one else can know your path as intimately as you do. The answers you seek aren't out there, they're within you. The challenge is not in finding them, but in quieting the noise long enough to hear them. This inner voice is your intuition, your truest self speaking to you. It doesn't get caught up in the opinions of others or the rush of modern life. It only knows what feels right for you. It's that feeling in your gut that pulls you towards certain opportunities or warns you to steer clear of others. When you tune into that voice, you align with your deeper purpose, with the path that's meant for you, not the one designed by others. But the whisper is easy to miss. We're so used to the external world dictating our choices that we often dismiss the subtle signals coming from within. How often have you felt that something wasn't quite right, but you moved forward anyway because logic or someone else's opinion told you it was the right thing to do? And how often did that lead to regret? The voice inside you is always there to guide, but we have to train ourselves to recognize its presence. Listening to your inner voice doesn't mean ignoring the world around you. It means giving yourself the space to filter out what doesn't serve you. It means trusting yourself enough to believe that the answers you need are already within you. And once you begin to listen, once you make a habit of checking in with that quiet part of yourself, you'll find that the path becomes clearer. You'll move with more confidence, not because you have all the answers, but because you're in tune with the guidance that's been there all along. In a world that moves so fast, we are often pressured to respond instantly to situations, to people, to challenges that arise out of nowhere. There's an expectation that we should always have something to say, always be ready with an answer or a solution. But there is profound power in simply pausing and observing before reacting. Observation allows us to step back and see things for what they truly are, rather than through the filter of our immediate emotions. When we observe, we take a breath and create space between the event and our response to it. In that space lies clarity. It's in that pause that we can assess what's really happening, not just what we think is happening in the heat of the moment. Reactions by nature are often driven by impulse, by emotions that flare up suddenly: fear, anger, frustration, or even excitement. But observation tempers that rush of emotion. It slows down our thought process and gives us the chance to see the bigger picture. Sometimes what appears to be a crisis is simply a momentary challenge. What feels like an attack might actually be someone else's pain speaking. When you take a step back, you begin to see things as they are, rather than how your emotions interpret them. Observation also helps us understand people better. We often assume we know someone's intentions, jump into conclusions about their motives based on our own perceptions or past experiences. But when you observe, you allow people the chance to show you who they are, rather than forcing a label onto them based on an immediate reaction. You begin to notice their patterns, their behavior, their energy, and you can respond from a place of understanding rather than assumption. In relationships, whether personal or professional, this ability to observe before reacting can transform how you communicate. It gives you time to listen more deeply, to notice the unspoken words in body language, tone, and expression. Instead of interrupting or defending yourself, you start to see what's really going on beneath the surface. And when you respond from that place of awareness, your words carry more weight, your actions more intention. The power of observation is also essential when facing challenges or obstacles. When something goes wrong, our immediate reaction is often to fix it, to act as quickly as possible to make things right. But sometimes the best action is no action at all, at least not right away. Observation allows you to analyze the situation, weigh your options, and make decisions based on a full understanding of the circumstances rather than a knee-jerk response to stress or fear. It teaches you to be strategic, to move with purpose rather than haste. By practicing observation, you gain control over your emotions instead of letting them control you. You start to see patterns in your own reactions when you're triggered, when you're defensive, when you're anxious, and you learn to master them. Silence is often misunderstood as a passive act, but in truth, it is one of the most powerful tools for achieving self-mastery. In a world filled with constant noise, whether it's external distractions or internal chatter, silence becomes a space where you can tune into yourself and take control of your thoughts, emotions, and actions. It is in silence that true self-awareness begins. When you embrace silence, you start to notice the patterns in your thinking. The constant rush of thoughts that cloud your mind begins to slow down. And in that stillness, you can see which thoughts are worth holding on to and which ones are merely distractions. This awareness is the first step to mastering yourself, recognizing the power your mind has over you and choosing not to let every thought or feeling dictate your actions. Silence is not just the absence of sound, it's the presence of mindfulness. When you allow yourself moments of quiet, you create space to reflect on your choices, your habits, and your behaviors. You begin to see yourself more clearly, not through the lens of external validation, but through the lens of your own truth. In this way, silence becomes a mirror, reflecting back your strengths and your areas for growth. It also allows you to connect with your emotions without being overwhelmed by them. In the noise of daily life, it's easy to react impulsively to how we feel, whether it's frustration, anger, or fear. But in silence, you learn to sit with those emotions, to observe them rather than be consumed by them. You start to understand their origins and can choose how to respond instead of being a prisoner to your feelings. This control over your emotional state is a hallmark of self-mastery. In silence, you also develop the discipline to focus on what truly matters. It's easy to get lost in the distractions and demands of the world, but when you make time for quiet, you begin to prioritize. You learn to tune out the noise of superficial desires and align yourself with your deeper purpose. Silence strips away the unimportant, leaving you with a clearer sense of direction and a sharper focus on your goals. Moreover, silence teaches patience, which is essential for self-mastery. The world often pushes us to act quickly, to produce results immediately, but mastery requires time. It requires the patience to let things unfold, to allow growth to happen at its own pace. In moments of silence, you can cultivate that patience, understanding that not everything requires immediate action. You learn to wait for the right moment to move forward, making your actions more intentional and impactful. In the end, silence helps you to master not only your reactions, but your impulses, your distractions, and even your fears. By turning inward and allowing space for reflection, silence becomes the foundation on which self-mastery is built. In a world that moves at breakneck speed, patience can feel like a forgotten art. We are constantly bombarded with messages that tell us faster is better, instant success, instant gratification, instant solutions. But life doesn't work on those terms. The most meaningful things in life take time to develop, and silence is where the seeds of patience are sown. When you allow yourself to sit in silence, you begin to understand the natural rhythms of life. Silence teaches you to slow down, to detach from the urgency that often clouds our judgment and leads us to make rash decisions. It's in these quiet moments that you can begin to see the value in waiting, in letting things unfold in their own time rather than trying to force a result. Patience is not about inaction, it's about trusting the process and knowing that growth, progress, and transformation cannot be rushed. In silence, you become more attuned to the subtle progress happening beneath the surface progress that might be invisible if you're constantly moving too fast to notice. Whether it's in your career, relationships, or personal growth, silence allows you to see the small, incremental steps that are leading you toward your goals. It reminds you that real change often happens slowly, and that the path to achieving something worthwhile is rarely a straight line. Patience also requires a deep sense of trust in yourself, trust in the process, and trust in the timing of your life. Silence helps you cultivate that trust. It gives you the space to reflect on your journey, to see how far you've come, and to recognize that just because you're not where you want to be yet, doesn't mean you're not on the right path. In the quiet moments, you learn to be okay with the uncertainty of the future, knowing that everything will unfold as it's meant to. In relationships, silence can help you develop the patience to truly understand others. Instead of reacting quickly in conversations or conflicts, you learn to pause, listen, and give space for the other person's perspective to emerge. Patience in communication allows for deeper connections and stronger relationships because it shows that you value the time it takes to really hear and understand someone else. Silence gives you the clarity to approach interactions with more empathy, free from the rush to respond or the need to prove a point. Patience is also about being gentle with yourself. In a society that demands constant achievement and productivity, it's easy to become frustrated with your own pace of progress. But silence teaches you self-compassion. In those quiet moments, you begin to understand that growth is not linear and setbacks are a part of the journey. Silence gives you the patience to accept where you are right now, to give yourself grace, and to keep moving forward without the pressure of comparison or self-criticism. In silence, you learn to embrace the waiting periods of life, the moments where it seems like nothing is happening, but beneath the surface, everything is shifting and growing. Just like a seed takes time to sprout and grow into a tree, the dreams and goals you plant take time to flourish. Patience, nurtured in silence, teaches you to hold on through those times of stillness, knowing that the work is being done even when you can't see immediate results. Patience isn't passive, it's an active practice of faith, of persistence, and of trust. It's in silence that you can quiet the fears, doubts, and anxieties that come from wanting everything now. Silence helps you cultivate the patience to wait for the right opportunities, to make thoughtful decisions, and to let life unfold in its own time. In the hustle and bustle of everyday life, it can be easy to lose our sense of direction. We get caught up in the demands of work, relationships, and the endless stream of distractions that come from living in a world that never seems to slow down. But in the midst of all that noise, there is a profound truth life is always trying to guide us, always showing us the next step. However, to hear it, we must learn to embrace stillness. Stillness is more than just the absence of activity, it is an active state of being. It's a conscious choice to stop, to pause, and to create space for clarity to emerge. When you embrace stillness, you create room to listen not to the external voices that so often drown out your inner guidance, but to the quiet whispers of life's direction. In stillness, you become open to the subtle signs and messages that are always present, but often go unnoticed in the chaos. Stillness is where intuition thrives. It's where you can finally hear the quiet nudges that have been there all along, guiding you toward what you truly need, not just what you think you want. Life has a way of speaking to us through our gut feelings, through moments of synchronicity, and through the gentle pull toward certain paths. But it's only in stillness that we can hear those messages clearly. When you're constantly in motion, it's easy to miss the signs, to overlook the inner guidance that's always available. In moments of stillness, you can begin to see your life with a wider lens. The problems that once seemed so urgent, the decisions that felt overwhelming, all begin to lose their power over you. Stillness provides perspective. It allows you to step outside of the immediate pressures and see the bigger picture. You start to notice patterns, to connect dots that didn't seem connected before. In this way, stillness is like a compass, always pointing you toward your true north, the direction you need to go, even when you feel lost or uncertain. Embracing stillness also helps you tune into your deepest desires and values. When you remove the constant noise and distractions, you have the opportunity to reflect on what really matters to you. What are the goals that light you up? What are the dreams that keep resurfacing no matter how much you try to ignore them? In the quiet of stillness, you can begin to differentiate between what is truly important and what is merely urgent. This clarity of purpose allows you to make decisions that are aligned with your heart and your soul, not just your circumstances or the expectations of others. Stillness also teaches you to trust life's timing. So often we rush toward answers, feeling like we need to know the next step right away. But life rarely works on our schedule. There are seasons of growth and seasons of waiting, and both are equally valuable. In stillness, you come to understand that just because something hasn't happened yet doesn't mean it won't. Sometimes the direction you're seeking isn't revealed immediately because the timing isn't right. Stillness helps you cultivate the patience and trust needed to wait for that perfect moment when everything aligns. Moreover, in stillness, you begin to hear not just the direction of your personal path, but the deeper currents of life itself. You become more in tune with the natural flow of things, the cycles of change, the rhythm of growth, the ebb and flow of opportunities. Life's direction isn't always about grand revelations or big decisions. Sometimes it's about aligning yourself with the flow of the universe, trusting that each step, no matter how small, is part of a greater journey. Stillness allows you to reconnect with your own inner wisdom. In the constant search for external answers, we often forget that we already have so much of what we need inside us. When you embrace stillness, you tap into that reservoir of knowledge and insight that's been gathering throughout your life experiences. You stop seeking validation from outside sources and start trusting your own judgment. You begin to realize that the direction you've been looking for isn't something that can be found through force or effort. It's something that emerges naturally when you create space for it.